Hi everyone, Andy here to teach you Kill Team 2024. Welcome to this two-part series where I will take you from zero to hero. But you're still playing a war game, so there are limits, let's be reasonable. This series is designed for someone who has never played a war game before. This video is going to cover reading an operative's profile, moving a model on the floor and going up and down levels with it, how do they shoot, fight and score points. This video will be enough for you to go away and play 90% of Kill Team, which for most will be enough. The next video will go into more advanced things you can pay attention to if you want to go down that rabbit hole and look at tournament play, perhaps. Kill Team is set in the Warhammer 40k universe, but uses an entirely separate rule set to its larger cousin, Warhammer 40k. It is a fast-paced, alternating action skirmish game that focuses on letting your skill at the table be the deciding factor. In our terms, the game is played over 4 turns, but in universe, a Kill Team battle is 60 seconds. That's the speed you need to think of. Many assume that a smaller game will therefore be easier and simpler, but that isn't the case. This is a fully fledged game in its own right that's filled with strong mechanics to evoke a narrative story on the table that brings to life the spectacular spec ops action between elite kill teams, with these small skirmishes being the turning point of entire wars. Every team has a strong sense of theme, and that plays out in the models, the lore, and the mechanics. All of these teams are unique, and rarely do you find such asymmetrical gameplay. You certainly can't find it in larger scale games. The good news is that Kill Team focuses on thematic rules first and makes them work within the game, making every team feel unique. Thanks to the tight balance and the at the table design, you can get wildly different feeling teams from single boxes of models, getting yourself to the table cheaper and faster than other wargames. In this video, we're going to cover all the rules to play your first game of Kill Team. By the end of this, you might not have gone from zero to hero, but definitely from incompetent to competent. And what more can we really ask than that? We're going to cover the data sheet, moving models, setting up your first game and rolling your first dice. In further videos, we will get into more advanced rules. The light rules for Kill Team are available for free in the Kill Team app or online from Warhammer community. The same goes for the rules for all of the different team rules. To play Kill Team, you will need tokens to denote the order they're on, objectives on the board, equipment they have, and other things. And the core rulebook comes packed with a sheet of tokens. The core rules are only 10 pages, and that's what we're covering here. You'll also need 10 d6 dice and a way to measure inches. You could use a tape measure, but I personally prefer to use something smaller so I can really get my measuring tools closer to the bases. Luckily, that token sheet with the core rules comes with measuring widgets. And if you really want, you can buy plastic ones in the equipment and accessories set. Oh, you're also going to need a kill team. Right, forgot that. This could be the elite Tempestus Aquilons and Alien Swarm Vespid Stingwings for the Hivestorm box, or it could be a custom-built Angels of Death Space Marine squad, the brutal and cunning Orc Commandos, or any other official team, of which there are about 30 for your consideration, so you're sure to find something you like. Or you might have found other manufacturers or cool-looking 3D prints that really sparked your imagination. Warhammer is super cool, but the whole world of wargaming and miniatures should never be constrained to one company. Whatever works for you. Don't forget to check the app for the rules to whatever team you're deciding to run. Now you've collected up your accoutrements and your team, it's time to... Oh, sorry, before we get started, it's the clarion cry of YouTube and a subscriber exclusive gift from me to you, which is a big double hello. Wow, truly the wholesomeness knows no bounds in this world of mine. 2 pleasantries. Such generosity is truly peculiar, I know, but that's exactly what you can expect from this channel. If you want to receive a greeting given to you twice in the future, just like, subscribe and leave a comment. For this video, your comment can be to let me know which way you intend to play Kill Team the most. Solo, co-op, preliminary ops, or approved ops. And if you're picking up what I'm putting down in this video but want a slightly more rambly and relaxed, but releasing far more regularly content, check me out on Glass Half Dead. Here in How to Play Part 1, I just want to get you on the table and playing the game. I will be teaching you from the Preliminary Ops Mission Pack, which is where everyone who's interested in PvP, that's player versus player, wargaming, should begin. If you're new to wargaming, I strongly recommend you play your first game solo, if you're inclined, or cooperative with a local, if you're not into solo. It's great and can even extend to more than 2 players very easily, as multiplayer missions for 3 or 4 exist, all of which can be played solo, co-op or versus. But what is a team? What is an operative? What's list building? What are numbers even? Somewhat unique to Kill Team, we have fixed teams, which are almost always a single box of your chosen team. We will often be able to swap which gunner we take, or whether the leader is better at shooting or fighting, but Kill Team is a game of preset teams, with everything coming in a single box. You can find the specific rules for your team in the app, but taking the Tempestus Aquilons as an example, we come to the Kill Team selection page and it tells us exactly what the team is. The leader can have one of 3 loadouts. The servo sentry can have one of 3 guns, and if we take a servo sentry, then we can't take all 3 other gunner options. For comparison, looking at the Vespid Stingwings, they have no options at all. You simply take your full box of models, and you actually end up with 1 normal warrior left over from the box. Value, love it. In this game, we are of course playing the Vespid and Tempestus. Okay, a data card has 3 sections we want to pay attention to. Along the top we have the name of the operative and a picture so we can identify it. It will then have 4 stats. APL is action point limit. This is how many actions it can perform when it activates. The only thing you really need to know about actions is that you can only perform each action once per activation. Move is how far you can move in inches. Use a tape measure or movement widget to measure this. I prefer a widget as I can get my tools closer to the models. Save is the number you want to roll on your dice to save against a ranged attack. All operatives roll 3 dice for a defense roll. Finally, wounds is how much damage they can take before being removed. It's health. Section 2 on the data card is your weapons. If it has bullets next to it, it's a ranged weapon, whereas a knife means a melee weapon. Then the name of the weapon. You can have multiple weapons equipped, but you always pick one to attack with. Attack is how many dice you roll when using that weapon. Hit is the number you need to roll to successfully hit with that weapon. Damage is how much damage the weapon inflicts on a dice that isn't blocked by the enemy, with normal hit doing the number on the left while a critical hit deals the number on the right, with a 6 being a critical hit. Then we have weapon rules, which might include the range of the weapon or a special rule like lethal 5, which means you crit on a 5 or greater instead of just a 6. If there's no range here, then your gun has infinite range. We then get a box for additional rules. This will be the box that defines your operatives, where they might have abilities that help other operatives or buff themselves in some way. Finally, at the bottom there are keywords. These can be ignored pretty much, but the orange words are the faction they're in, and all the way at the right is the base size of the model, very important if you're considering proxies and conversions. With your team set up along the side of the board, we decide the deployment and the mission. Deployment gives us our deployment zones and where our 3 objectives will be, and our mission decides what we need to do with those objectives. An objective is a 40mm marker. The 3 missions are loot, secure and transmission. We choose to play loot because we love booty. From this point on, we're following the quick start guide to get started. We then set up the board with terrain, which we call the kill zone. If you have the official terrain, you can follow an official map as advised in the core book, or you can set out whatever terrain you have lying around. You want a nice mixture of light and heavy terrain with at least 1 level for your operatives to get on top of. This can be almost anything, from old kill zones to 40k terrain to anything else you've got lying around. Lego and Jenga blocks work surprisingly well. If you're doing a tester game, just to get a feel, you can draw lines on a piece of paper. Light terrain will be things that your operatives can see over, like pipes or small piles of rubble or low ruins. Heavy terrain will be anything your operatives can't see over, like buildings, intact walls, cargo containers, etc. This is done partly to bring the cool theme of your kill zone to life, and partly to let your operatives gain cover as they move around the board to keep them safe from shooting. With the kill zone set up, we then roll for initiative, with whoever rolls higher getting to select which side they want to deploy in. We then select our operatives. Many teams have more options than they have operatives they can take. For example, the evil Chaos Legionary team can bring 6 operatives into the kill zone, but because of their different options and their marks of chaos, they are actually the largest team out there with a potential 60 options. Or maybe you're playing the equally evil, but in a very different way, Mandrakes, who have no options and you'll always take the same list. This is found in the app and rules are given for how your team is set up there. I will be playing with the 2 teams found in the Hivestorm launch box, obviously, the Tempestus Aquilons and the Vespid Stingwings. We then select equipment for your team. Every team can take 4 pieces of equipment. Every faction has 4 faction exclusive equipment and can mix and match with the universal equipment. The token sheets that come with the teams and the core book have tokens to remind you of everything you picked, which I keep by the side of the board to remind me how many grenades are left or some such. Some equipment, like barricades, even gets deployed before your operatives and are a super cool form of player-placed terrain that modify the battlefield to suit your needs. Starting with whoever has initiative, we then deploy our teams by breaking it into thirds and alternating putting down a third of our team. So my 6 Phobos would become 3 groups of 2, while this 10-man Kasrkin team would become 2 teams of 3 and 1 team of 4. Both the Stingwings and the Aquilons are 10 operatives, so I will first place a group of 3. When you place your model down, they must be placed on a conceal order. This is very important as the order your operative is on defines how they interact with the terrain on the board. You can be concealed or engaged, which I'll explain soon, but everybody starts concealed. With everyone deployed, we then roll for initiative for the first turn and whoever wins can decide who goes first. I choose me. Now we go into the strategy phase. Here we can play one strategic gambit that we want. These are abilities that will affect all of our models in some way, and every faction has their own unique gambits. Strategic ploys cost 1 command point to use. We start the game with 3 CP and we gain either 1 or 2 every turn. Both teams choose not to play any ploys. Nice. Going into the Firefight phase, we begin the game proper. Every model has an APL stat. It will be 2 or 3. This is how many actions you can perform every activation. The 8 core actions are reposition, dash, charge, shoot, fight, fall back, pick up marker, drop marker. Note that you can't perform the same action twice. Also, there will be context-sensitive actions that crop up, like opening a door or a unique action on their data card or a mission action that scores you a victory point. The goal of the game is to action on the objective markers for the crit op and kill enemies for the kill op. These will give you victory points, and whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game wins, even if you've had all of your team taken off the board. Also note that you can't score any victory points in turn 1. At the start of each model's activation, the very first thing you decide is whether you want to be concealed or engaged. When concealed, you are harder to hit and more defensive, but you can't shoot or charge. When you're engaged, you are less defensive, but you can shoot and charge. A good rule is to stay concealed until you absolutely have to swap to engage to deal damage. This Aquilon Tempesta decides to swap to an engage order, reposition his move stat, which is 6 inches. Measure from the front of your base to the front of your base. The cool measuring widget only goes to 6 inches. For his second action, he will dash. While the reposition action depends on your model's move stat, a dash is always 3 inches for every model in the game. The long side of your smaller widget is 3 inches, how about that? For his final action, the Tempesta is within control range of the objective. In Kill Team, every model has a 1-inch control range, so could tap it, except it's turn 1. In Kill Team, every model has a 1-inch control range. This is the area around them that they can interact with. Pretty much everything in the game needs to be within 1 inch to affect a model. Whether it's terrain, tokens, objectives, or enemies, you always look at your 1-inch control range to see if they interact with you. Because the 40mm objective marker is within our control range, we could perform the mission action loot to score 1 victory point, except it's turn 1. But we're going to shoot instead because that's way more fun, and it's turn 1. Looking at his ranged weapon, we see he has a pistol with a range of 8 inches. Note that if a ranged weapon doesn't specify a range, then it has infinite range. Kill Team is based on cramped confines, so of course a rifle can fire across the whole board without needing to measure. Pistols typically have an 8-inch range. To shoot, we must be on an engage order and then pick a valid target. This means a target without any intervening terrain. If they're on a conceal order and the intervening terrain is in their control range of 1 inch, they are not a valid target. If they are on an engage order, they are a valid target regardless of terrain. Luckily for us, even though this enemy is concealed, there isn't any intervening terrain in their control range and between the two models. We then look to the weapon stats. Attack is the number of dice we roll, in this case 4, as we have the hotshot pistol equipped. Hits is the number we need to roll equal to or greater to hit them. And then special rules are additional rules. As mentioned, range 8 inches. So we check the range and that's fine. We then roll 4 dice for our attack. We roll 3 dice that are above our hit stat, and 1 that is 6, which is a critical hit. So we retain 2 hits and a crit. Critical hits deal the damage on the right of the weapon damage column. It can also only be blocked by a critical defense dice or 2 regular defense dice. We discard our miss. With our attack finished, we go to the defensive roll. Every model in the game gets to roll 3 dice for their defensive roll. Your target number will be their armor save. In the case of the Stingwing, 5+. We managed to roll 2 successes and a fail. We discard the fail. We then match our successes to the attack dice, managing to discard the 2 normal successes from the attack, leaving only the critical hit to go through for a total of 4 damage. And that ends the Sergeant's activation, so we flip his order token over so he's no longer ready, he's now expended. We then swap to the other player. This model only has an APO of 2, so we will be able to make 2 actions. We swap to an engage order because we think we want to attack, or more precisely, we want to show off how melee works in this tutorial. Let's not kid ourselves. So our Stingwing chooses to charge for its first action. A charge can only be performed when you are on an engage order and is your movement stat plus 2 inches. You need to end this move within control range of an enemy though. With a move of 6 plus 2, that gives us a charge of 8 inches plus 1 inch control range, so our threat range is 9 inches and sure enough we can reach the enemy sergeant. With the charge action finished, we don't have to fight. We could have wanted to do something else at this point or just tie the sergeant up in combat, but instead we will use our second action to fight. That means this Vespid is fighting and the sergeant is retaliating. Who is doing what is relevant for buffs and ploys your team might have? In a fight action, both players pick a weapon on their datasheet to use and simultaneously roll the number of dice in their attack stat. That's 3 for the Vespid Claws and 4 for the Tempesta's power weapon. The Vespid got lucky with 2 hits and a crit. The Sergeant rolled 2 hits and a crit, discarding the miss. The Power Sword had the weapon rule lethal 5+. This means it gets to retain a critical hit on a 5 or 6, not just a 6. With both optives rolled, whoever charged gets to fight first. In a fight, the players alternate choosing to strike or block. If you strike, you immediately deal damage. If you block, you remove one of the enemy's unspent dice. The Vespid chooses to strike with its critical hit, dealing 4 damage. The Tempesta chooses to block with his dice, removing one of the Vespid's remaining dice. The Vespid strikes again for 3 damage. As the Vespid is now out of dice, the Tempesta strikes with his crit for 6 damage and then with his normal for 4. The Tempesta took a total of 7 damage, leaving him with 2 health remaining, while the Vespid took 10 damage, removing him from the kill zone. As soon as your health reaches 0 in a fight, even if there are remaining dice, you end the fight and remove the dead operative. Fights are always very dangerous and you will take damage. It's part of the greatness of Kill Team. With the Vespid's action complete and it removed, the turn goes back to the Aquilons. With our Aquilon gunner at the back of the board, we decide to swap to an engage order and then reposition up this building. When climbing, you simply measure how tall the building you're climbing is and then subtract that from your move. This building is 3 inches tall, so my gunner moves 1 inch to be within control range of the wall. I subtract 3 inches for the height of the building, and I then finish my move, which is 2 inches. The only other rule for climbing is that any climb, no matter how small, cannot be under 2 inches. So if I'm climbing a rubble pile that is only 1 inch high, it still costs me 2 inches to climb it. Also, there is never any skipped move in Kill Team. You always subtract the climb amount from your move stat and then continue your move. you don't get to teleport to the other side of terrain for extra movement. When you're on a floor above the kill zone, it's called a vantage point, and if that vantage point is at least 2 inches higher than the model you shoot at, you get a bonus. Also, if you get shot at from below, you get cover from the floor. So vantage points are very powerful. Let's see how that works. The gunner picks his target, the Vespid across the board. Remember that you only need to measure distance if you have the range weapon rule. Looking from up here, we can clearly see the Vespid Sky Torch. It's on a conceal and has cover within its control range. If we were on the floor, we wouldn't be able to shoot it, but when on a vantage point that's 2 inches or more higher than the target, we are allowed to. Additionally, when we're 2 inches higher than our target, we gain the rule Accurate 1, which means we can auto-retain one of our dice as a hit without rolling it. But our gunner still needs to choose his profile. This plasma can fire on standard or supercharge. We will stick to standard. We roll our remaining 3 attack dice and get 1 hit and 1 crit, giving us 2 hits and 1 crit in total. Note the weapon rule Piercing 1. Piercing 1 means that the defender rolls 1 fewer defense dice, which means they can only roll 2. When you have cover, you get to retain 1 defense dice without rolling it. When you're on a conceal and in cover, you get to retain 2 without rolling or 1 crit save. We choose to retain 2 normal saves. Due to Piercing 1, we don't have a 3rd defense dice to roll, so the enemy crit goes through, dealing 6 damage. And that is 90% of Kill Team covered in 24 minutes. Taking you from not knowing how to move a model all the way up to being able to play your first game, and thanks to solo play and joint play, you can comfortably and easily play through a few scenarios to get confident with your rules before facing off against an opponent. I hope this has helped you get started playing Kill Team, or maybe even considering exploring the wider world of all wargaming. Come back for part 2 where I go over some more complicated interactions and how to set up for approved ops, the tournament standard. If this is a how to play, consider that a tips and tricks. And final thing, if you made it to the end of the video, I'd like to give you a thank you in the form of a big triple hello. Wow, so wholesome. And that's a gift from me to you, because truly nothing helps a small channel like mine more than just watching the darn video. If you want more rambly and less structured videos, consider checking me out on Glass Half Dead or even my Patreon. Thanks for watching. Bye.